Hello relatives, my name is Chef Krysia. I am a Peruvian American chef and food scholar of Quechua descent based out of the Boston area of Massachusetts. My exploration and love of indigenous foods focuses most often on ingredients from the Andes. I also enjoy utilizing our many gorgeous food from all over our continents together to create varied textures, techniques, and tastes. Today I'm going to prepare a dish called Llapingacho, which comes from Ecuador. It is a potato pancake traditionally stuffed with cheese and typically topped with a salsa de maní or peanut sauce and served alongside roasted pork or chorizo. There are many variations of the stuffed potato throughout Latin America, like papa reina from Peru, stuffed with ground beef, boliñas de patata con queijo from Brazil, or tortitas de papa from Mexico or Central America stuffed with cheese and ham. Instead of using meat or dairy, I'm going to prepare my vegan version of this recipe, stuffing the potato pancakes with mushrooms and red peppers instead. So let's get started. Here we have a quick look at some of the ingredients that we'll be using for the dish today. Potatoes, mushrooms, onion, garlic, peppers, and cornmeal. We're going to start first by boiling the potatoes. Those will take about a half an hour for them to boil. I like to do it with the skin on so that I don't end up with extra water in those potatoes. Then we're going to move on to prepping all the veggies for the filling. So starting with the onion, and then we'll move on to mushrooms and red peppers. Just after finishing up with these red peppers, we're going to move on to slicing up some green onions. I'm going to use the greenest part for mixing into the mashed potato to make the potato pancakes, but use the lighter green and some of the white to use for the filling. And then last we will chop up the herbs, the parsley that will be used as well in the filling. When I was taught to boil potatoes, I was always taught to leave the skin on, and after boiling and letting them cool a little bit to peel off the skin with a knife. It's just the way that I do it. You can certainly do it differently yourself if you feel like it's easier to peel them first and then boil them. I just find it keeps water from engorging the potatoes a little bit too much. I also only do this if you feel comfortable. I love slicing things in my hand to avoid dirtying cutting boards if I can. Here I'm using a very vintage potato ricer. It belonged to my grandmother, to mash the potatoes. I just find this to be a really effective way to get a consistent mash, to make sure that everything comes out really nice and smooth. You can certainly use different types of mashers, even a fork. It's not required to have special tools, but this just does it for me. Once your potatoes are mashed, you want to go ahead and add the other ingredients. I'm adding here the green onions, a little bit of salt over there. I'm going to add my cornmeal. And in lieu of using an egg, because I am trying to keep this vegan, I'm using nutritional yeast. I'm showing you the brand there. And just a small handful of that, probably a couple heaping tablespoons worth. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that all together. Nutritional yeast is a great way for vegans to get additional protein into their meals, as well as add a cheesy flavor to dishes. You want this texture to feel firm. You do not want it to be too wet, because once you start pan frying it, it will fall apart. So make sure you use a nice dense potato like a red potato or a yellow potato. Here we're going to start with the sauteing of the filling, all the veggies that will go into the llapingachos, or the stuffed potato pancakes. And you want to make sure that your oil is nice and hot when you start to throw some of those nice aromatics in there. So I'm adding here first the onion. I'm going to let this saute for a little while. And I've added about 3 tablespoons of oil, by the way, in there. Might seem like a lot, but because we're going to be adding layer on layer of aromatics and veggies in here, I want to make sure there's enough oil to go around to keep everything nice and moist. We don't want things to be dry inside. So I'm going to let this saute for 5 minutes or so, just to make sure that the onions are starting to get translucent, and then go ahead and add the red pepper. The red pepper is, again, I think I ended up putting in about almost a half of a red pepper in there to one whole small onion, white onion. And then I'm putting a little bit of cracked pepper in there, and we'll add some salt, not too much because we want to salt again when we add the mushrooms to make sure that that flavor gets all the way around. So we've just added a little bit of salt to that mixture, and we're going to go ahead and add the diced up baby bella mushrooms now, and let that soften just a little bit before we add some additional ingredients. To the left of the pan there, you can see that I've got some dried sage. This is sage I grew myself and I dried last season, and so we're going to go ahead and crush that up by hand and add that to season our filling. And I also have, out of the camera shot, there's a small cup there with some veggie stock, which we'll also add. So while this is sauteed, we want to really make sure that our mushrooms and our onions are fully cooked all the way, and the peppers are fully cooked all the way through. So we'll add a little veggie stock, put the cover on it, and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. And halfway through, we're going to release the cover so that the whatever liquid is left over will boil off and leave us with a more dry filling that will make sure and ensure that the potatoes will not fall apart once we put them in the pan and after we've stuffed them. So this is after we've left a little bit of the liquid start to burn off. I'm now adding the lighter parts of the green onion into the filling. And I did a little bit of a taste off camera, and it was salty enough, so I'm not going to really add anything additional to that at this point. But you can see that I'm now just punching in the chopped up parsley. I'm going to flip that around a little bit. You can see that that filling is pretty dry now. I don't want that parsley to cook too much, as I want it to retain its nice green flavor, that grassy flavor. And then we're going to allow this to just sit off to the side and cool down so that we can use it to fill our potatoes. So what we're going to do next is take make a nice ball out of our mashed potatoes that have been sitting waiting for us to get busy with it. And we're going to flatten them like a pancake in our hands and go ahead, and you can see I have small hands, but that's a pretty nice size disc there. It's probably about 4 inches or 3 inches, 3.5 inches there. And we're just going to put about 2 tablespoons worth of filling inside and slowly close up the edges there, and then seal it with our hands and slightly flatten that so that we create a nice little patty shape. And then next step, this is just so that it doesn't stick to the pan. We will put a little bit of oil in it, but I really love the fact that we've both mixed in the cornmeal to thicken and make it sort of stick to each other a little bit better, but we're also going to dust it a little bit on the outside so that it gets a nice crust when we pan fry it. Our stovetop flame or heat level should be at about a medium heat. I've got about a tablespoon worth of oil in my pan, and hopefully you can hear a little bit of that sizzle. Because I did not add egg to my potato mixture, my potatoes will feel a little bit looser as they heat up, so you might need to be a little bit more careful when you're flipping them over. You can see how that cornmeal really created a beautiful and colorful crust on the outside of that llapingacho, or that potato pancake. Traditionally, llapingachos are served as a side dish, but I wanted this to be the star of the show, so I created other side dishes to accompany it for this meal. Some quinoa, some kidney beans, a little bit of some pickled onions, some roasted delicata squash. But traditionally, it is served with something called salsa de maní, or peanut sauce, so that's what you're seeing here. So here is our whole spread all together laid out for you. It's pretty amazing how packed this whole meal is with protein and potassium, iron, calcium, vitamins A, B6, and C, even omega-3 fatty acids in that squash. So there's a lot of good stuff going on there. But if we're just to talk about the potatoes, of course, they've got a great source of fiber, potassium, and also vitamin C. Not to mention the mushrooms, peppers, and onions that are inside. It's all good stuff. While I didn't provide the recipe for the traditional sauce to be served with the llapingacho, it is called salsa de maní. I'll put that at the end. And it is a peanut-based sauce with sauteed onions and spicy ají pepper and cilantro and some cumin in there. You can see that it just coats the potato pancake beautifully. And because it's got that nice viscosity to it, it really, as you cut into the potato pancake, it gets into all those little crevices, those nooks and crannies, so it's delicious. So there you go, folks, your vegan llapingacho stuffed with mushrooms and peppers and served with a little salsa de maní. Maní means peanut in Guarani or in Taino languages. All right, these are vegan potato pancakes with that spicy peanut sauce. I want to thank NAPSA for inviting me to show you all a little bit about indigenous ingredients south of the border and highlighting some really delicious flavors and combining both foods from the north and the south in the finished product here on screen. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed.